Hello, in this video I would like to take a bit of a different approach and bring up two topics that I believe the Penn State College of Information and Sciences and Technology should really consider. So the first topic that I would like to bring up for them to consider is actually here on the screen. It's the field of software testing. So in my previous video on open educational resources, I had mentioned that the field of software testing is one I had gotten into throughout my college career. And when I had first gotten into it, I really did not know much about this field. I just ended up entering it and learning right on the spot. I had heard about it a little bit, but I really didn't have much practice going into this field. So I think that just starting off there, I think Penn State should consider putting more emphasis on that. And then to get into more detail about what I had learned. So the biggest one that I had learned when I started work was definitely automated testing. So the whole concept of test automation, I just really did not know a single thing about it. Because I had already thought of something as simple as you go in and then you just test the function to make sure that it works properly. Like, being a gamer, I could already kind of picture doing that because a company develops a game, they try to test their NPCs to make sure that their arms are not detaching or something bad. But when it comes to actual test automation, this is something I really didn't think much about because had pretty much never used anything like it at that point. So when I had started my first internship, it was kind of easy at first, getting the idea of just manually testing the front end. But as time went on, I started to realize how the bugs were distributed for testing and also just for fixing. And then also when it came to automated testing, I had installed Selenium on my machine at that point, but I had zero idea of what I was supposed to be doing. So it took a couple meetings for me to finally piece together how Selenium was working and how I would create the scripts where you have the clicking or the function for Selenium to click or scroll or type into a text box, and then also assert that certain elements are on the screen. So, for instance, I can actually demonstrate that now. If I was to go to inspect here, so since you can actually see as I scroll through these, each of the elements highlight. So I had zero idea that Selenium was running and asserting based on each of these elements here. And especially one thing I hadn't known about was something like if you're looking for the XPath, you can go into console and try to look for it. So I think stuff like that, and then also moving down the page, if we're talking about the backbone architecture, which we do talk a lot about that here at Penn State, actually testing that architecture is another thing too, because that was what I got into more in my second internship. And that's also, in fact, where I learned Docker, which I heard a little bit about Docker here, so there's at least that. But how to actually use Docker, I did not know a single thing about until I had done my second internship. And then going back to the front page here, Penn State does already talk a lot about the software development lifecycle, and we do have an emphasis on the design side because we have our new human-centered design and development. I think that's the official name. But a lot of the testing portion is really overlooked because, well, I don't want to just say overlooked, it's definitely talked about. But what the testers actually do is, at least as far as I can see, not really gone over, and I think that there's a proper opportunity there for Penn State to teach students more about it. Because I mentioned in my last video, I think I mentioned it at least, but I know it's somewhere in my open educational resource, that this field is definitely growing quite a bit. And just from my two internships, it really opened up my eyes to how important companies are seeing this, because I had mentioned a little bit ago about the video game industry with bugs in their games. that's just one example of bugs. You have bugs on pretty much every bit of software, at least somewhere. And even when we move into a cloud-based future, there's still going to be defects that have to be tested. So just based on my experience, and then based on what I've heard a lot of professionals talk about with software testing, I think there's more than enough value there for Penn State to definitely consider this as class material. And then moving on to my second topic. So this here is obviously Hacks CMS. Something else I wanted to suggest to the college is that Hacks CMS is an alpha, well, I don't know if it's specifically alpha, but it's an early development content management system that's being created by one of my instructors. And I think Penn State should definitely consider using Hacks CMS a little bit more, whether it's creating more websites based on it or simply having students use it. Because I think the biggest reason why I say that is because this is definitely a opportunity for Penn State to learn more with content management systems. And also, if it grows enough, you could also get a scenario where you have testers that are testing websites built on this CMS, and I'm sure there's some testers somewhere in the college, but that would open the door for more testers to be able to test a Penn State project. So you would have this experience directly coming from Penn State to the classroom where you would be teaching them about software testing, for instance. So you would have actual experience from the college being shared to students that are in the college, essentially. So that's my biggest reason for why I think Penn State should put Hacks CMS somewhere, whether it's just a tool for students for building websites, because outside of opening up the door for testing, Hacks CMS has also been really good for making websites. I've already made a few websites on here, and me personally, I've definitely enjoyed this the most for creating websites, because I've used Drupal and that was a little hard. I used WordPress and that was too simple. I used Grav CMS and that was a fun one, but the big thing about this one that I found is that it sits somewhere in the middle of all those CMSs. So between the fact that it opens up more opportunities for Penn State and also just its ease of use, I think there's definitely a place for Hacks CMS as well for Penn State to consider. So those are my two topics that I wanted to share and propose to the college. I deeply hope that they consider them, and thank you for watching.